Yeah, I'm a little confused. Maybe I need to, I don't want to hire, I'm looking to hire a company, but I figured that maybe I could
Probably
just
help.
talk to a few people first.
Yeah, send it to me. I
Okay,
have no
fine.
problem with that. That's part of what I have to do.
And Joe, I want to thank you for putting this online
No problem.
and getting that done and being more transparent in your administration. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's really very nice. So that's about it. Thank you guys
All right.
for coming here.
Thanks for coming down.
Appreciate it.
Is there something on the agenda? Because that's we're open for the agenda.
Oh, for the
No,
agenda.
no, she, not.
Is it a question or on
It's
the?
a question.
Okay,
Is it still open comment?
yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's open comment.
Okay, oh, thank you for putting the public comment before the meeting. I mean, it was getting bad being here and 11 o'clock. Thank you very much.
No problem. Anybody else? Bob? Nothing? All right, moving on.
Oh, I wanted to make an announcement.
Yes.
Tomorrow night, Sean Core, my son, will be racing in the Charlotte ARCA race. If you want to watch on Fox News channel. And
What time is that?
I just texted my husband who just landed and he's like,
I saw him race.
This is Daddy.
Just a second.
yeah, he just raced, he raced in,
Just the
where's the last race? I don't know, I can't remember. Whatever it was, he had engine trouble, but we just changed to a different guy to set up the car. And he says, Charlotte, have you ever raced in Charlotte? And he said, no. And
Beautiful.
I know, but it's a really hard track.
Of course.
It's a really hard track. So, there ought to be a lot of excitement and hopefully.
What number is on the sentence?
It depends upon which
Yeah.
one. We have a team, so sometimes I think he's usually 8, but then you'll see his name, Sean
Yeah.
Court, when you see him, and then,
If you speak to him, extend our
yeah.
good luck from the
Yeah,
town
good
board.
luck to him, and if you ever need him for like a public relations or something, we brought the car down for the Great American Weekend and, for everybody to see, well, one of the cars.
Great.
So, but they're in Warsaw. So that, and he'll be racing Pocono. So if anybody wants to sponsor, we could definitely use that. So. But thank you.
Tell
very
John
much.
to come and see me at Otterville. He always shares the wealth with me. I'll see what I can do for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the pool opens this week, right?
It does, yep. As soon as
Okay.
I can get the approval from the Board of Health, I think it'll be tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Deb. Take care. All right, moving on. Items open for discussion and action. So Avi Dhabi is here to talk about the conditional acceptance of the road for Rolling Ridge. Who's requesting?
I stand up, or can I sit down?
You can stand up.
Gentlemen, ladies, how are you? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Avi. I built the estates at Rolling Ridge off of Howard, continuation off of Howard, off of Maple Avenue in the town of Goshen. We're getting ready to wrap up the subdivision and starting to get ready to take care of all these items that we have to do to turn over the road, which we're looking forward to doing. I had a request from one of the homeowners to see if she can buy the neighboring lot for her kids for the future. Personal reasons, I'm not in the business of selling lots, but I have to make an exception for her. But I also want to make sure that it's not going to prevent me from turning the road over in a dedication. So I was seeking approval from you guys to be able to sell her the lot and still turn the road over as soon as I'm done with it. My projection date is somewhere around, I would say between September, November. I want to have the road completely finished and send over. I got Gary Rich starting to do all the easements and monuments and stakeouts that he has to do. My attorney is handling all the easements and paperwork that he has to do. And then we're just gonna go through and touch up the curbs, get the road ready, the catch basins, the retention ponds, and slowly walk out of that project. So is there any chance that you guys might have a problem if I sold one lot? And if I could sell the lot, can I turn the road over?
From my vantage point, I did do a little research on this today with Sean Hoffman. Get met with the project last week.
Yes.
And that's something that we're gonna have to give legal advice on and, like, so Kelly, no, people like that, I don't know.
Yeah, I did speak to Neil and Frank about it. I also spoke to Kelly briefly about it. It's up to, it would be a decision of the board. Normally, we would not accept the dedication of a road until every house was built. This particular situation is extenuating because of what happened. The woman, when her husband passed away, she's trying to establish and keep her children close to her. I would say, from my perspective, if we could look at something, this is only my perspective, if we could look at some type of modification where we, we talked about this, closing up the driveway entrance, so it doesn't look like there's a driveway road there, and maybe put a moratorium on building for 3 years, and then she'd have to bond the road when she's ready to build.
If
I
she
would
wants
be
to build.
comfortable with that. I don't know about the rest of the board, but from a legal perspective, and Rory, you correct me if I'm wrong, this is totally up to us if we want to accept the condition, we can.
Just so you know, like, I know you guys have the printout, but if you guys could see, she purchased the house on lot 15. Lot 14 is the last one before you leave. If it wasn't for the circumstances that she's gone through to bring her up here, I wouldn't even be in front of you guys, but I'm hoping that we can get some sort of an answer right away. I know when I spoke with Joseph a couple weeks ago, I said that even if we closed off the curb, put everything back to where it was, she might even just put a pool there for now, extending her house, and who knows if she's even ever going to build on it. She just doesn't want to lose the ability to build down the road when her kids finish college, if they want to come back. So, I'm trying to do it, as a collective union rather than a lone wolf. So that's number one. Number two, we have shade trees that have to get put up along both sides of the street. I have no problem with the shade trees. Problem I'm having is finding these shade trees that were scoped out 5.5 years ago for this project. Would you guys object to me using shade trees, same caliber, just maybe a different family or different name?
I think that's the planning board issue, not us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're gonna have to go back to the planning board. I mean, I mean, from my perspective, a shade tree is a shade tree. I mean, I don't get purple or green. But you'd have to go back to, if the planning board specifically has something on that document, it's gonna have to change it that way.
Okay, so even if I can't get all the shade, but we're just having a conversation. I know that you guys can't make a decision. The shade trees that they asked for, the 20 of this, 25 of this, 20 of this, 20 of this, do you think there will be a problem, since the town is the one that's going to take the dedication over, not the planning board? If I was able to get 40 of one and maybe not 20 of the other one, does it really make a difference if I'm using the species that they still asked for, just not in the quantities?
Back to what we're saying though, is we wouldn't have an issue with it. It's not something
I know.
that we could vote on.
Okay.
We have to go back to the planning board. If the planning board makes this change, see, the planning board made that decision.
Yeah.
We
It
wouldn't have a
doesn't
problem with
seem
it.
like a big deal to me.
Yeah. But we can't override what they have in writing.
Yeah.
So, I would
Okay.
say go back to them and, we can have a conversation with Sean, or, it'll be part of the minutes. Now, I don't think anybody on board would have a problem with what kind of tree it is, as long as it's a shade tree.
Yeah.
Enforced.
Okay, so, and as far as waiving 2 or 3 of the homeowners that already did an extensive landscaping, that might want to see if they can do away without the shade trees on their property because of the landscaping that they
Again,
did.
back to them.
So it's all to them.
Yep, you're
Okay.
gonna have to appeal to them if the homeowner's there already, and you're gonna have to appeal to.
Okay,
Just to give you some feedback, I understand the purchase of the lot next door. I don't have a real problem.
Yeah.
I understand the reason. As long as we do it within the framework so that no one else gets hurt in subdivision. Personally, I don't.
like from what I'm understanding, just as conversations and just to let you guys know, I think right now she's looking to possibly just put a pool in and just kind of close it off. So, the suggestion of closing up the curb on that side and just eliminating that curb cut and, like, Joe made a recommendation, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years,
Right,
where
so
you
you're
can't
not
build
gonna
on.
put a moratorium on
Yep.
that building, and she's gonna have to bond the road.
If they do any kind of construction later on, she's going to have.
Oh, absolutely, insurance, just like we had to do.
it anyway.
Yeah.
Anything you- So I'm not gonna torture you, but-
Okay, so when do you think you guys can get back to me on that? Because she's kind of waiting. I think it has to do with,
I'll get a written request from the planning board attorney to ask her to put it in writing, and then once we have it, we can absorb it and put it back on the agenda, we'll tell you our answers.
that's good. I appreciate it.
Right.
Yep, thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you all.
item number 2, review and approve the bond resolution for the demolition of Solution Building. Finally, Phil, would you like to talk a little bit about our meeting today prior to doing that?
Yeah.
Let everybody know what we're doing.
There was some discussion on this, and let me just put this. here. We had discussed taking out a 5-year bond because that renews every year. And we could pay off as much as we want and renew the amount that we want. It goes into Fund A, we have a large surplus at this particular time in Fund A. So if you wanted to use more money in Fund A at any time, then the next year we can renew it. If you take out a 10-year bond, then we're locked in. And it's a real problem. So, we may pay this bond off in 2 years or 3 years, depending on how it goes. So I would say we shop the rates, they're still very, very good. I don't know what they are exactly today, but I know you've talked to bond counsel, right? And there's no problem getting the money, but we have enough from Fund A, I think, to start the construction,
Right.
Right.
don't we? So it's my recommendation that we go for the 5-year ban, not bond, 5-year ban,
I agree. with
and
that.
not the 10-year bond.
Christine, you want to give us a little background on it?
Yeah, one of the other differences is that you would need permissive referendum if you go to 10 years. And that just would
Right.
take the whole process a little bit longer.
And the other thing is, if you have a 10-year, you can't pay it off.
Right.
Right.
Right. 5-year, we can pay it off at any time, and then finance it, and the amount, we really have the flexibility.
Yeah.
So, and I don't see any downside to taking the 5-year, it gives us all the flexibility.
Christine, what's the fund balance of Fund A today?
About 2 million.
Yeah,
We got,
Yeah.
that's flexible.
yeah. So,
George, anything on it?
Well, which, when I picked up my agenda, there was one that I read.
That's a 10-year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's,
now,
yeah.
we're gonna go which line here, and so are we gonna entertain and pass this resolution tonight?
We are.
Okay, so then, I just wanna make sure I got the right one.
Was in your new packet that I put on the desk tonight, George.
I'm going to look at both of them. I really have to study it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities.
Little boilerplate in there, George.
right.
Well, essentially, you're asking for money, but am I supposed to be speaking for this stuff?
second one of the packets, George, if you're trying
That's the
to,
second one.
Yeah.
So then,
if you look on the second page at subsection C, indicates the term.
second page? Yep.
Second page, subsection C should indicate 5 years in the second sentence.
Oh, yeah, okay, I got that. But there seems to be a lot of, as you say, boilerplate, there seems to be a
Well,
lot of the same language with the 5 or the 10.
actually, I'm sorry, I might have missed.
Well, that one is, I see this, the one I got now, is the second one.
Yeah,
Is 5 years.
I misspoke. The first one is the one that will not exceed 5 years. Second one is the one that will exceed 5 years, so. You know,
Oh, yeah.
so my mistake, I misspoke. The first of the packets is the one that does not exceed 5 years.
Correct.
So my apologies.
It's just-
Sorry, George. I was trying to help you there.
I just want to make sure legally, this
Yes.
is going to be a ban, not a bond. It's going to be a bond anticipation.
Correct, but it's the confusion is you're talking about the maturity of bonds and bonding something.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
This is a bond anticipation note, right? A ban, and that's different than the straight bond. So I don't know if the legal jargon is okay by just quoting bond, but I want to make sure that we're not voting on a bond and not a bond anticipation note. They're two different instruments. So. So on to the next thing and then.
Yeah.
Read it or get comfortable with it or whatever.
So
I mean, we have the money to begin
Yeah,
construction out
yeah.
of Fund A, right? We have a work
Yes, we
session
do.
coming up.
Yeah.
If I don't know that we should do it on the fly, the comfort level of reading through it, you
Okay.
know, but
I'm good to
If-
hold it over to the next meeting. It may be correct.
as long as it doesn't hold up getting started, which it doesn't sound like it does, then
It's not gonna hold.
then I can give you a clearer breakdown of
Either one, yes.
Okay,
The only
Well, then-
reason why we're doing this is because the village doesn't have the money, we have the money,
Right.
this way we
Yeah.
pay half.
right. But that way it's guaranteed.
so
So
hold over till next.
Yeah.
yeah, I see no reason not
Yeah.
to. Then I can give you guys a
We're good.
okay.
Okay, I just want to bring. it
Yeah,
up.
no, it
Just in
makes
case, it
complete
may be
sense.
the same, but, okay, go.
Okay, item number 3 is we're going to review and approve the proposal for new telephone and network services through Spectrum. We evaluated, well, Christine evaluated, I don't want to say we, Christine evaluated both Spectrum and Frontier. We all took a look at it, relatively similar pricing. But we felt that Spectrum is a better offer because they are on straight fiber, correct?
Right,
Versus coax that Frontier is.
yes, and they said they already have the fiber, I guess, on the
There's no
street.
build out cost because
Right.
it's already to the building. Whereas
Exactly.
Frontier, there is build out cost. Bill, anything?
No, I don't have a problem. I said.
George?
It says that on the bottom there, Frontier estimate does not include the police department.
Yeah.
So effectively then, the one inspector does.
Right, so
Correct.
even if it's a.
Really,
two-
that's not a true figure. The
Right.
2295 would probably.
Comparable to the
Right,
2600.
Right, but I don't think it's gonna be that much more. I mean, the costs are so similar that I think the issue really, especially with this
The
type of
service.
system, is the service
Service.
and
Yeah.
how it works.
No, I don't have a problem.
Rick?
I switched to Spectrum myself, I like the service. It's really
Oh,
good.
good. Oh, all right. Have a motion to approve and authorize the supervisor to sign all documents to facilitate telephone network services through Spectrum.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. In our last meeting, we talked about getting some young blood in our police department. Looking at it. So the chief has delivered to us a memorandum and a request to hire a part-time officer out of the town of Walk Hill, Officer Laguna. His information is here. He'll be part-time, no different than the retired state troopers that we have. He'll just be filling in shifts. His resume is here. Have any questions on it, concerns?
Looking to relocate to the Finger Lakes region.
What's that?
Looking to relocate to the Finger Lakes.
He is?
Yes, that's what it
Yes,
says.
when he retires.
That's aren't we all?
Yeah.
Need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry,
I'll make the motion.
second,
Second.
all in favor,
For discussion.
discussion?
He makes the motion without deference to age. That's all I wanted to say.
Any discussion, Phil?
I did.
Okay, that was it.
That was it.
I didn't hear him.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Okay, as you all are aware, Kaj is retired, moved on, not retired, but moved on to Sullivan County. The judges have requested to hire Anna Henley as a part-time junior court clerk at a rate of $22 per hour, starting on June 13th, if we pass it. Her information is there. She's been interviewed. In fact, I think she's worked, or, she's worked with Judge.
She's worked with Judge Van Haster and Harriman and was replaced Chelsea in the village of Florida. Was I think trained by Chelsea out there. So she's had essentially a full-time gig with 2 part-times. So
Chelsea's quite high on it. So
yeah, I've met the young lady for what it's worth. I know my opinion is supposed to be legal, but certainly
Well,
the resume
the
is, yeah, the resume is more than adequate, and I believe this comes from a direct recommendation from Judge Van Haster of having worked with her, so be hard pressed to
Any discussion?
object to that.
It's $22 an hour with no benefits.
Part-time.
Yeah,
Sure. Rick?
No.
Doug?
No.
All right, so can I get a motion to hire Anna Henley as a part-time justice clerk, starting on June 13th?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome aboard,
At the
Anna.
rate of 22.
Yeah.
At the rate of 22.
All right, discuss and approve. Discuss and approve purchase of a new computer server for a total of $12,035.18. For the police department, Christine, right?
Yes.
I have a question, Christine. Is this required for you?
It's on state contract through Dell.
To a buying of the state contract.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any discussion, anyone? Questions? I get a motion to approve the purchase. Make a motion. Second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Moving on.
Seven.
What's that?
Number 7. and then-
I'm getting there. Okay, I need approval of a budget transfer of $12,036 from B 1990-400 contingency to B 3120-217 police computer capital budget.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 8. Discuss and review a letter received from Andrew Gilchrist regarding Maplewood dated May 16, 2022.
I could say something with that, with your background. When we put in our, we reconstructed our zoning plan and whatnot, right? 2014, I think. We've had corporations that own land in this we say find an easement, but we will accept the easement, but we will not accept the land. So for all of these we've had, we do not take the land. In this case, Kate Schmidt, when she was looking at it, reviewing it from state level, or from the county level, she put in there that she thought that the town wanted to take this is for 63 acres because we're getting water. Well, when they were engineering all of this and were negotiating it, get through the process, they had to provide, we're providing the water storage tank, and they're providing the wells, so they're subdivision plus additional water. So I think what we ought to do is say, fine. Construction that we have, just go with that and not accept it as town land. If we haven't done that, done the more we've done, this is a technicality that I think is good. Make sure we realize. Said what she said.
Yeah, and I had the luxury of speaking to Commissioner Sorensen last night at a dinner. And he specifically brought this up to us. And the reason Orange County Planning is looking for us to actually take this is because of its close proximity to the Solution Center. And they want to make sure that the Solution being a park, that the adjacent lands are controlled by us, disallowing people to do anything on those properties that abut the Solution. So that's their position on that. We don't have to agree to it. I'm just giving you what his position on this.
I'll just add my 2 cents. That sounds reasonable. If the water is on that land, it just means that we need to be able to control that water.
No, we're gonna do that anyway, Phil.
Well, we might do that by agreement or whatever, but we'll never own the land. We might do it by easement, but I would be more, I know we don't normally do it, but we can.
But isn't this land, when in that pre-engineering agreement,
Right.
that well and all belongs to
Water and sewer
district. So that's out of it. It's just the other, that's 63 acres of whatever water is.
So that one lot we would take over that belong to Hamiltonian Special District, is that what you're saying?
The water, where the wells are,
Right.
when it's all said and done, pre-engineering agreement with them.
Right.
That belongs to Hamiltonian Park Water District. As a consequence of Hamiltonian Park Water District making available for them a water tank. We just spent 700 some odd thousand for one in our PDL.
I
They wouldn't
understand.
have spent it. So to me, it has nothing to do with that. They already signed off on it. That's how.
Okay.
But
I can understand that.
there's technical issues that are like, who's gonna pay taxes on this? School taxes, and all those other things. You know, we're in a different place that we've never been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the cost is. Maybe
Yeah.
we should get an assessment on what the value
Yeah.
to the school district and to the town is.
Otherwise, a lot of it's wet.
A lot of it's all wet. It's not all wet.
Then there's insurance, you know, I mean.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I think Kelly Norton can probably give us as much
Yes,
background on this as anybody.
yeah.
All right, so you want to hold it over and I'll ask Kelly for a letter to us on it?
So I just wanted to, yeah, just kind of a little bit further from what Doug was saying. You know, normally with the other subdivisions, it becomes part of a particular lot. But this particular one, we decided that we were not going to inherit it. Then which usually goes to a lot. Right. But this doesn't lend itself to.
No, it doesn't. There's no, I don't think it's assigned to any lots. I don't know if it's a homeowner issue.
Homeowners Association, but
So ultimately equally contribute to it, all the residents of
Yeah,
that.
but they would own that lot. The developer would still, whoever owns the lot now is giving us an easement. They would still own that lot no matter what.
Correct.
The thing I'm a little afraid of, though, is when they had the water tower in Hamiltonian Park, and I'm talking 30 years ago, I go back in history. Conklin, who had a lumberyard here, dedicated that to us. He gave it to us. We had a big ceremony. The paper was here. Everybody And one of the attorneys who was responsible for filing it did not do the filing. So everything, the contract was signed over to us, but it wasn't filed. A developer came and bought that parcel with the Hamiltonian Water Tower. We no longer owned it. And he put it to us where he wants a 30-lot subdivision, or he's not gonna give us our water or whatever. It was a real big problem. We thought we owned that piece. It was where the tower is now. So that's the only reason I bring it up, that maybe we should really look at it. I'm not saying to do it.
We need to
But
look
Kelly
at it to
should-
make sure that
Yeah.
that land is deeded to us where those wells are.
Well, right, if it's a separate lot deeded to us, then we do own it. That's what I'm talking about.
But that other 63 plus acres.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a line, first of all, with
I understand.
We have
Right.
insurance that covers us. We have an umbrella policy that covers everything that we have, so.
But then it's the tax issue.
I would ask.
I would also ask if each person on the board have a conversation with Commissioner Sorensen. See his views on it, if you don't mind. He's got some really good views as to why he thinks the town should own that property.
You know what, I think, I understand that, but if we have a conservation easement, we probably do almost the same thing. But that's something that we have to look at.
So we'll hold over to the June 9th or.
Most of it is wetlands.
Yeah.
It does look like that there is some rock, land that is not wetlands. Those two pieces that are on Coleman Road.
Right.
Well, actually,
So what do we propose to do with those lands, George?
well, I'd love to have it also for the ambulance club.
Okay. That's what George is thinking.
I mean, where were we looking for? I don't see this.
One, two, three. And again, I don't know whether or not it would do that, but
Are those
I'm
buildings
talking
lots?
about, down the road, not now, we've got our hands full, but.
That open area is part of the 63-acre lot.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we,
Yeah, let's,
talk to Kelly and this and that, to understand what, because they were quite emphatic with us in the past. Whether it be, remember the Jonas property out there and all those others, is, they wanted to give us, we said no. So that they had the ownership and the maintenance of it, so on, and answer questions on it. This one's, kind of a.
but if it was good land, we also talked about taking the dedication. If we could use it for recreation, or it was good land, then we would say, okay, instead of doing a conservation, easement, we'll take the deed to the
Yeah.
land. But, this one is a little different situation.
This is good.
Could be, could be pickleball courts.
You bet.
Well, they're not building on it because of, it's in the road.
Gonna hold it over, Jeff?
Holding it over to June 9th or
Yeah,
as fast as I can get information from
Yeah.
Kelly on it, and
Yeah.
also ask that you guys reach out to Commissioner Sorensen, have a discussion with him if you don't mind, or if you choose to. I had a really good one last night.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Talked a little bit about it. I told you guys that I was interested in looking at it with all discussion on affordable housing, that is. With all of the commercial development that we have coming in along 17 and the warehouses, Myanmar's expanding, they're gonna hire 60 to 80 people. RDM is putting in 1.2 million square feet of warehouse space on 4 parcels in the town, and he's got 2 more that he's doing on Police Drive in the village. The single biggest problem that we have, and Mike Lanza will attest to this, is they can't find enough people to work because they can't afford to live in the close proximity of where the work is. So I'm just looking to see if we can have a discussion or start a discussion on the possibility of true affordable housing and finding it, maybe with inside a development or a developer that would be interested in building out a affordable housing for all these commercial businesses.
when Amy's Kitchen was coming, when I was starting 5 years ago, they said we need 820 people. We didn't have them. And so we looked at how many, I think Kelly did this for affordable housing, what should we do? And Fort Jervis, Middletown, and Newburgh have lots and lots of unemployed people living. public transportation, you don't put the extension, put in their parking lot, places for buses, to load, unload, things like this. I think we probably ought to dig that back out. It may not even put in anymore. Just understand what we're doing and how we're going.
I know in affordable housing, we have to what, set aside 10% of the development for affordable housing. The problem could be that you have the affordable housing and they don't. There's no, you can't make anybody, you can't
Of
put a
course,
caveat
no,
where
absolutely.
they do it, so now you have an abundance of affordable housing. You're not against it or for it, you just-
Right, no, understood.
That we are mandated to do 10%.
But we're not really doing that right now.
We have to.
Yes, I think we
You
are.
can't not.
Maplewood and Youngs Grove,
No, I'm talking about.
Obvious Development did three condos for 1.4 million, and 82
No, but look, what they do is, when Kelly, you look at what you already have,
Have 10%
and it's 10% all.
of the town.
I think we need to bring that up and dust it out, because at
Yeah.
the time when we did this for the trainings, we had it, but at the same time, these other communities have people that we can hire.
Well,
But I think we need to, you know what I would suggest, we start the dust off the study that we did.
this is gonna be a long, drawn out, comprehensive discussion on, you know, looking at it as a whole. I'm just opening the conversation over the course of the next year or so, to try to figure out how we do it, what we can do,
Right.
how we can assist this. I spoke to Neil, and he had a very interesting comment, and then I spoke to the developer, and he would be all over this. There's the first project for RDM, he said it was 2659 Route 17M. He's putting a 300,000 square foot warehouse south of where Dunkin' Donuts is going on Gate Schoolhouse Road. And he'd be certainly interested in talking about the possibility of building maybe 18 or 20 apartments on this property specifically for the employees of that facility. So it's a joint commercial / residential, but strictly for, as part of a bonus or something, getting employees in here, we'll give you housing.
That's outside of the town's purview. That's not real responsibility.
No,
To
but it would
afford
be a
to-
town's responsibility to approve that type of development.
They would go to the planning board, as
Correct.
long as it's within the zoning, they would do that.
Correct.
I mean, they can build anything they want. You can go over the 10%, but the town has nothing to do with that. It's the developers that come in, the builders that go to the planning board and ask for that. As long as they're within the zone, we have nothing to do with that.
Correct.
So I'm thinking,
You
we're
know,
getting into an area where,
Darlene keeps together, Joe, I gave you a copy December 31st, which has projects completed, built, whatever.
Yeah.
And it has the cost and the employees and this kind of stuff. And I asked her the other day if she needs to update that. And that would be very good for us to see. And that is, it's a big problem because, you know, you can't hire people to that. I don't know why.
Starting to come back. From my perspective, in my two businesses, they're starting to come back.
that's good.
We are getting people knocking on the door. We do have a surplus of people now.
Wow.
So they are coming back.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Anyway,
okay. Item number 10, discussion on Airbnb violation letter. Lori's prepared a letter. We have an issue that has been brought to our attention on, I'm sorry, what road was it? Lakeview Drive.
But we have other, you know, I'm sorry, that's-
Oh, there, you can go on Airbnb.com. There's a
yeah,
ton of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna- I'm sorry, Joe. Yeah, I was just, there's one. The additional line about that it's got to be your primary residence. So I'm in paragraph 1 where it defines bed and breakfast. There's an additional line in the code that essentially says in some substance, it's got to be your primary residence, which will be added back into this form letter, which ultimately, puts the Airbnb owner on notice, both actual and construct notice, which then, although it's not necessary to bring them in on a violation, you can violate them right now. It's certainly they are residents or at least own property in our town, and certainly a courtesy in that sense, but it also speaks to the idea of when you do see costs, whether that be legal fees or additional costs incurred by the town. This notice provision only further substantiates your chance of getting costs back, whether that be attorney's fees or whatever. Right? It's important to everybody. It was specifically important to Neil, who deals with the more traditional code violations. These are big ones. I mean, obviously. So the one piece of business that's been open for discussion is what is our level of due diligence as to seeking out Airbnbs that we're aware of. Obviously, you can go online, right? That's one way, but then far do we want to go down that rabbit hole of chasing notice? Right now, this property was brought to our attention. Some others have been brought to our attention, and certainly that requires a look by Neil, and then Neil's in possession of these letters. He's authorized to send them out once you guys are okay with the letter, which I don't think there's really much to change on other than that one addition. Okay.
I mean, my general concern with Airbnbs is there's no control, zero control. You could have 50 people show up and rent the house.
All right. Listen, the beauty of it for us is that they're advertising it, right? So, you know, they're distinguishing someone having a party or being a party house versus being an Airbnb is that they got to list it to sell it. I mean, if someone's going to run an underground Airbnb, they might slide through the cracks for a little while. But, you know, this should be pretty easy to determine.
So,
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Relative to Lakeview Drive, have we sent?
This is going to be served upon them via certified mail.
Are you also
receipt.
serving Airbnb? in San
Well,
Francisco?
we can have a further discussion on how you want to handle that. I mean, it's, you know,
I think we should.
they should be notified, and what should happen is they should have a mechanism that once they know that the municipality's code does not authorize Airbnbs, it should not allow you to list it in that municipality. Same way you use a filter to search, right? That would be, they should be able to take out the ability to even list this as a Goshen property, as an
And
Airbnb.
if they don't?
And if they don't, then they continue to allow it to go on, then they're gonna be part of the lit. We'd have to sue them. I mean, we could. They're gonna get a notice about
I
it.
mean, just tell them the town of Goshen, it violates the zoning,
They-
and we don't allow it.
Right,
So
I'm
anybody who's
saying-
applying to them and paying them, they won't take the application.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go one further than that.
You wanted to recoup fees.
We
that
could
have
actually put them on notice that any fees that are derived from that property.
Correct.
Are due to the town,
Yes,
and we should put that in the letter to Airbnb. That may be a way for them to definitely stop and not want to.
yeah. I mean, if they're put on notice that our code doesn't allow them
Right.
to operate in our town, one would think a Fortune 500 company like that would have a mechanism to not allow.
They're not gonna do it.
But nonetheless, we're gonna put them on notice, so.
Yeah.
that's-
Well, yeah, because if we put them on notice that our code states that we can come after them for any fees once we put them on notice. Now that's an issue with Airbnb. Okay, you haven't taken it down. They're still
That-
renting. Now we're coming after you for the money.
we'd have to amend the code to have that direct mechanism in there, but I don't think we need to amend the code to pursue them for operating or facilitating an operation in our, so they're gonna be put on notice.
Let's start with it.
Let's start with
Yeah.
noticing the Airbnb owner. We have one in front of us. Obviously, if any come by way of
Yeah.
residents, then we'll deal with them accordingly. But Neil would be authorized to send this letter out.
They can send the copy of the zoning to Airbnb too. Where they would be in violation, that would be the end of it.
Okay, so, and then I know that maybe on the work session, the discussion of if the want to regulate Airbnbs or have them, or have some,
Well, I think they have to conform to
The
what the
B&B.
B and B code is. It's gotta be a primary resident. If the gentleman over on Lakeview does that, I mean, I don't know if we have, we have an issue with that situation.
so therein lies another piece to this, which is, just listing something on an Airbnb doesn't mean that you are in violation. You could be
No.
using that site, but we can go and cross-reference, obviously, with either they had site plan approval or they had a permit. Either way, whether one zone or another, you gotta come before the planning board at some point to be authorized. So they could be using Airbnb site, but they could be a B&B.
Of course.
Right,
Well,
so-
they could.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
I
not,
see.
yeah, like, what is the other one? Verbo? Is it Verbo?
VRBO.
Yeah, VRBO. But anyway, this will go out.
Yeah.
So the village has a ordinance, as you don't know.
Correct.
I spoke to Scott.
Yeah.
And Scott told me Airbnb people are very receptive. If you're having a problem, like we are having with Lakeview, they'll shut them down.
Yep.
I mean, like they would quickly.
Well, there's a difference between having a problem, that we're having a problem because it's unauthorized. Before we even get to whether they're a good host or a bad host, right? They're just not even authorized to host. So there's a difference between having been on some of the other ends of the village problems. The problems with the village was not just on all, it was the hosts were throwing parties, right? So it's a separate issue altogether, right? So you could have an authorized Airbnb and they could be a bad host. You follow what I'm saying, George? Like, yeah, so I think that was where the village,
But what I was trying, why I brought it up is what I was trying to accomplish here is Lakeview is a problem. Apparently from what Doug is saying, and I don't know personally of any others, but there are others in the town.
for sure.
We could, according to what Scott said, those are bad actors, whatever it is. The garbage is out in the street, they're yelling and screaming, playing music at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're drunk, whatever the situations are, and apparently they can be shut down. Airbnb, the organization itself, will shut them down.
But you know what? We don't want to go into the enforcement portion. It violates the zoning. They just can't have it.
That's
And you
where,
don't have to worry about it. Right?
right. But I agree, George, if we ultimately, if they do get a permit, it should be the same as a,
It's a means to stop the problem almost immediately if what
But-
Scott is
but-
saying is correct.
but that gets into the idea of identifying
Right.
what's a good host or not. What I'm
Right.
saying is we are already, we're good enough right now where,
Yeah.
so, but I,
As the B&B.
right,
So they have,
yeah,
the village has now allowed.
they
Airbnb.
have some caveats that allow it, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, technically we do too. It's called a B&B. It's just,
Right.
the Airbnb is,
Right. I
the
bet you're
difference
right.
really is the primary residence factor. And that's why that's got to go back in to that definition. And that's,
Do
so,
All right, very good. That's tomorrow.
got it.
Item number 11, we had a lot
Well,
of discussion over the last 2 or 3 months about increasing the parkland fees. Discussed it, we talked about it, we approved it, and then come to find out from Sal Laverna that this board or the previous board had already approved it on March 11, 2021. 3,500?
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
So parkland fees were
They had the
raised
wrong
from
year.
3,000 to 3,500 when approved on the March 11, 2021 meeting. 3,500 for each building lot with a residential subdivision for each dwelling unit within a residential site plan. That's what you approved, but now we have to amend the.
Well, we, right now, in the code allows you to increase, decrease parkland fees by way of resolution.
Right.
What you're suggesting would require a change to the code, and I believe would require local law, because what you wanted to, you'll be changing the definition of what is subject to parkland fees, not just the SPL, right? Which would
Right.
allow, so.
But do we have to do that every year? When
No.
do we do it?
So the parkland fees, whenever you want to raise them or lower them, as long
Right.
as you provide a justification like any other
Right.
resolution. But what Joe, you want to repeat that
Sure,
part again? So,
the point I was getting at is if there's a situation where, let's just say for argument's sake, the planning board approves a lot to put 300 single family, apartments on it.
Right.
under this law, there's one section block of lot number, we would be entitled to 1 fee of $3,500, not the 300,
One hookup fee.
1 fee.
Because it's listed by SBL,
Yeah,
and
not dwelling.
so it's just something as far as,
And the
you know,
village ran into it, that's how we found out, because they're putting in 110 units down in, on Good Time Park. And when they gave the attorney the bill for it, the attorney said, nah, sorry, $3,500 is all you get.
Yeah.
So they ended up negotiating, not the 450,000 they were getting, but a smaller number.
So we should write per unit or something like that.
No,
Is
per
that what
dwelling.
you're talking
Per
about?
dwelling.
Per dwelling.
We need to change our code. so
Yeah.
Yeah.
we specify.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
especially with, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Not that we have major developments going up, but in the event that we ever have, 20, 30 apartments.
Yeah, and you want to do it, obviously, you don't want to do it when one's coming in, they feel like you're cherry picking right there, you know, so let's do it now.
That's- Yeah.
But nonetheless, going back to the discussion from the last meeting, which was whether we had to do a local law or not, there is a section of the code that already authorizes the up and down by resolution, but we still, now we're gonna have to do a local law to fix that part of the code, but that's, at least we're good on the 3,500.
Yeah.
So we were all sort of right and sort of wrong last week. I blame the JRC personally, right? Yeah,
All right.
Well, it's good that you brought it to our attention.
You're gonna work on the local law now?
yeah, it's just, the local law.
Rick at the JRC, it's Al Burnson. What the hell are you guys talking about? It was approved on
Yeah.
2021.
we did.
Well, he threw it in
We
the,
did
he
say
threw it in the
something. Yeah,
dossier
yeah, I
from
did.
last meeting,
But-
and it suggested it as if it was the one we were talking about earlier this year,
Yeah,
so that
but-
threw
but
everybody
This
off.
is apples and oranges.
Yeah,
This has
yeah.
nothing to do with the fee.
No, no.
So
You know what
answer,
I'm
yes,
saying?
I'm gonna draft the local law, I just had drafted the one that changed the parkland fees for resolution, which turned out to be null, so just gotta adjust it.
All right.
Yeah,
Number 12, discuss and approve the May 12th, 2022 meeting minutes. Any comment?
Yes. I wish the figure on it was correct, but it's not. Page 1. The lowest bidder is 369,000.
I left out the one.
The 1 million before that.
Yeah.
was left out, so
Well,
That's gotta be put in.
we were hoping that he would see that and just took the 369 there.
You can make the motion with the adjustment, that's it.
And then the second thing was, there's actually 2 page 6s, so the first page 6 should be page 5.
Yeah.
Last but not least, on that same page, which now is page 5. There's, the talk about go back. There is a budget shortfall, his issues, which is just shortfall as it stands. There's an extra isn't. That's what I have.
Very good. George, we were English teachers. There you go. Wonderful.
Those were typos.
Mary would have
They were
failed that
typos.
class.
Typos.
Not English.
So you want a motion to approve this correctly?
I do. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th with George's adjustments in there?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve the May 17th, 2022 minutes. George?
I wasn't there.
Okay.
He's gonna abstain, right?
I wasn't there. so I'm not
Any
saying.
comments?
well, you got the numbers right there, Mary.
Did I?
Yeah,
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No, I'm saying.
All right, I have to read this in to the minutes. Item 14, it's information. The New York State Pollution Discharge Elimination System, SPEEDIES, permit procedure requires the town as an operator of a regulated municipal septic storm sewer system, MS4, to file an annual report to continue to maintain permit coverage. A draft of the annual report for 2021 has been posted to the town's website for review and comment. The report complies with the DEC mandatory format. The final report will be filed with the state prior to the deadline of June 1st, 2022. I met with Sean today. He's going to have it prepared and we'll sign off prior to June 1st. Okay,
finance.
By the way, that's a lot of
Before
work.
before you do the finance, in the additional thing, that we're going to have 6:30 work session, the first meeting of. That's it.
Was it a question or I didn't hear at the beginning?
No, he wants
I
it.
just wanted to.
Yeah, you-
as part of our
You
agenda.
put it,
Got it.
yeah, you put it at the beginning, George.
Yeah.
You said it at the
Also,
beginning
so you
too.
already put it in, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought I was adding it
Put it
on.
in
No, you did, you put it in twice yourself,
Put
George.
it in twice and
That's why
then
I
have George
put
correct
two-
the minutes next
yeah.
week. Tell
If
him to
I put in
twice.
2 is's, then you put in 2.
Well, then, does that mean that we have to have a work session for each one of the meetings? By your tongue, worship.
No, guess what each is.
Just preaches.
Before we go to finance.
Nice.
Yes.
Just say something about the solution.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so that we get it into the record.
Yep.
And today we had a contractors meeting, builders meeting, or what you call it?
Contractor.
Right, about the taking the solution school again. We'll have all the members of the meeting itemized, but one of the areas that came up was how we would treat the library as far as going over the properties and so on and so forth. And in addition to that, Joe made a really good suggestion about the time capsule. And I talked to Bill Troy right after our meeting, I went out, and he's the president of the trustees of the library. And it was an interesting conversation. First of all, I just gave him an oversight of what we had discussed. And the fact that there would be no heavy trucks going through the library roads and stuff. And with that, he was so delighted because what he thought is some of the asbestos trucks would be going by the library property. He was really concerned, but I told him that now we would be entering the property through the regular road site, and we wouldn't be going through maybe just some cars or like trucks or pickup trucks. Well, he was delighted. Then we came to the issue of the time capsule. And he had talked to me before, and some of us before. Initially, they wanted to have some kind of ceremony when they got to the first floor of the time capsule out. Well, that was not, that didn't make any sense. So, but Joe had mentioned today, and I mentioned it to him, that maybe when we pull the time capsule out, and we have to talk to the solutions first, because it's their time capsule. That maybe we would bring the time capsule over to the library. Yeah. And when open, it could be on display. And at that point, Bill said, geez, maybe we can have that ceremony at the library, thinking it would be very good for participation in the library. And he would be more than delighted. He's going to talk to the trustees to have that particular item displayed in the library, because of its historic value. It was a real good conversation. So that's where we left it. So now we have to just find out about the Salesian Brothers order. And talk to
We're
somebody.
doing that now. Kirsten's working on it.
Thank you. And at that particular point, he's going to talk to his trustees. And we set this thing up. Joe was an excellent suggestion.
I have a question relative to that. Do we have the right to put it and say it's now ours? Or can the Solution Brothers say, no, the time capsule was put there and then it reverts
So
back
that's what
up?
we're going to talk to them about.
They don't,
We-
we own the property. I mean, they-
But
Because I think it would be an ideal, perfect, permanent display in
Yeah.
the library to draw people into the library, one, to see this, time capsule and whatever they put in there. I'm sure they have some interesting stuff. in there.
Yeah, but I can't imagine they would have any ownership rights to
I
it,
can't
unless
either.
there's something in the deed when we took over the property.
No,
We're
it's
just
taken
gonna
over by
notify them out of
tax.
courtesy, like
Yeah.
courtesy. We're
Yeah, no,
pulling it
yeah.
out if you
I
want.
mean, I believe it was taken over the taxes, right? They
Yeah.
didn't sign a deed over to us, the county took the taxes.
no, we bought the property.
We bought the
County.
county. The
Right.
county took it from the Solution, the seminary. for
Well, they had
taxes.
sold it first, and the builder reneged on the sale of that particular property. And that's when the county took it over. We wanted to buy it. We tried to buy it before the solution sold it. They sold it, we got stiff. But then, yes, the county took it over for taxes.
They might have already taken the time capsule out. We don't know
No, it's in the,
when they
there's
left.
nothing going on with the cornerstone.
No, they
All the
left.
stones
Can they
are there.
pull it out and put the cornerstone back up?
They didn't,
There's one of them removable doors on hinge, you know, slide door.
The back door. You could be right. You could be right. You know what?
Probably not.
But probably not, but you could be right.
but definitely.
You're gonna think biggest
I
kids,
swear, if
we
that time
don't-
capsule's out there, I'm gonna
They will
never
not
live
be
this
fair.
down.
I got some- hey,
Mary's gonna go there later tonight just to prove
We're gonna
it.
take that.
So,
All right.
into that,
Moving on to finance.
Wait, and just for everybody's education, the library itself is going to have their own box that they've already purchased. And it's going to be, this is paper, so on and so forth, requests for different pieces that they.
time capsule.
We should put this Legion time capsule.
In the-
In the library. It's not there.
Yeah.
So did I put a mouse? I don't have a mouse in my job. Did I put a mouse in?
I have amounts on mine.
Do you?
Yes. Discuss and approve the motion to authorize the supervisor to pay the accounts payable check run on May 26, 2022, in the amount of $126,940.76. Have a motion? So move. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and approve a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay workers' comp claims in the amount of $1,714.42. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to authorize the supervisor to pay a manual AP run for April 30, 2022, in the amount of $734,678.98. So move. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to authorize budget transfer as requested, or there's two budget transfers Christine has. Christine Cavallari conducting accounts payable, or no?
No,
We did
it's
that.
information, or it's just information.
Right, so a motion to authorize the budget transfer as requested dated May 26, 2022. I don't have any budget transfer. You have?
It was the very last page. Very last.
Yeah, budget transfers, right?
You have them? No.
Yeah, I think it's on there. Okay. Any-
Two
any
last
discussion?
pages. I have it.
Anybody have any questions?
Arcade water.
Excuse me?
I'm trying to figure out what the page is.
Budget transfers are the last two pages.
We have the,
Bob had asked for it at the beginning. Privilege of the
The
floor.
reason I say that is because sometimes there's comments on the agenda, or the agenda items that they talk about.
So I'm just need a motion to authorize the budget transfer as requested. So move.
Oh, okay.
Second,
Wait, who made the motion? Right.
second,
I'll say.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this,
Yeah.
this week, this week behind this.
Yeah.
We have public comments on agenda items only in the beginning.
I was changing
And
that.
then at the end, whatever you want to speak about,
Yes, speak.
that's what I think we should be doing.
Well,
That is currently how it's constructed.
that's
It's
how
supposed to
it
be
is.
agenda items and then public comment at the end.
Right.
It's always hard to put the, the
Go on.
genie back in the bottle when someone starts on an agenda item and keeping it in there, but it is pretty standard in most municipalities that they do it that way. So it's hard to cut someone off when they're talking. So, and sometimes there is an argument to
So,
allowing people to go at the
You can't
beginning.
respond. It's just-
well, she sent, Deb actually sent the letter into me on May 20th, but Mary said there was something that we would actually put on as an agenda item, that would be privilege of the floor. And
Yeah.
I took guidance from, what's that?
Privilege of the floor, they can talk about it.
Yeah, it's generally reserved to the end for obvious reasons, because it can spiral into items that are on the agenda that the board is not fully aware of, or, you know, had an opportunity for their own discussion. But, you know, it's a balance of handling, you know, your citizens and,
If I recall, I don't know what meeting is, but Bob is here, I'm sure we have it in his memory. He's the one that requested privilege of the floor to discuss anything that was on the agenda, correct, Bob?
Could I just try and make a differentiation?
Sure.
Right.
Comments on the agenda items is comments on the agenda items.
Mhm.
And the end of the meeting is privilege of the floor,
Floor.
if you want to think of it that way.
Comments on the,
That's the way,
comments are on the agenda itself.
right.
If there are any items.
Right.
But not to discuss the items on the agenda, because you could be there forever. If you have 30 things on the agenda, and you have 30 people that want to discuss each of those items before you get to the meeting, you'll be there forever before you start the meeting.
No, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Comments on the agenda.
On the agenda itself, not the item. Well, yeah,
it's semantics, how we're saying
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I mean,
you're right, right.
Well, I don't want to,
Yeah, no.
come in and say,
No.
boy, the agenda looks great tonight, fellas.
right, it's, you know,
I can't talk about agenda item number 1, 2, or 3.
Well, what you can talk about is this agenda item doesn't make sense, or it doesn't relate to.
I always thought it
Yeah.
was to provide the public an opportunity to try and convince you maybe of a different idea before you vote on it. Because a lot of times it says, discuss and pass or vote on such and such. So if you wait for privilege of the floor,
Yeah.
it's already passed.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Makes sense.
I always thought comment on the agenda was just to try and give you guys a different view if you had. I don't know what you're gonna talk about.
right,
I don't
they
know
don't
what-
either,
I don't know
that's
what
the, they don't necessarily, they don't fully know either, so, you know, there are people that do the comment after each agenda item. Also opens it up, but there's a reason that some items are reserved for public hearings too, right? So, I mean, it's kind of a,
In the public hearing items, then you get input from the public.
yeah, because
The agenda items,
there's a
Well, I can see you naturally, you don't want to be here till 8:45 at night, but I can see you limiting, not having discussions, but if somebody wants to give you a couple of sentences on some idea that they think that you,
the agenda is published. If they have anything that they want to say, they submit it to the board.
yeah, but you know, this comes out to
Email,
say,
whatever,
this.
and they'll put it on the
wasn't-
agenda.
Wait a minute, the agenda wasn't published until this afternoon. It never is.
well, I mean, it's a work in progress all week, items are getting,
Yeah.
you know, if we put a draft, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I put a draft agenda up by 11 a.m. on Thursday. That's my,
And it can't be
I
approved
try,
any
Bob,
sooner.
I
Well, I'm
try.
not blaming you, I know it changes and people walk in and at 2:00 and say,
Yeah.
can we do this?
Generally-
I
generally-
understand that, but-
4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock.
The idea is that you clarify what the agenda item is, why it's on there, but you don't get into discussion, and at the end, you could go up and say, agenda item 1, even if it's already passed, I mean, these things can be, everything can be either undone, but that's the reason they set up the public hearing for certain things that require the public's input. I'm not trying to treat you like you don't know, I mean, I'm talking to everybody here, because otherwise we would be here all night, there'd be filibustering, there would be, you know, as you can imagine, on certain items, I mean, it's relatively peaceful right now, but you know.
We used to have a work session and discuss, we had an agenda at the work session, but there was no privilege of the floor at all. Whether even,
Right.
just, even though we went over the thing. So the privilege of the floor is only the one meeting. Not the work session, as I said.
Well,
Now,
like I said,
if you want to change it, that's why I just said that. I don't know.
the comment on the agenda items would be, this is something that the public is seeing for the first time.
What does it mean?
But it's not a public hearing.
I understand that,
It's not a
but,
public hearing.
but you still want to comment on what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, do I have to wait until you vote for something that I don't agree with to tell you that? That's my only point.
I totally do,
I mean, you know, it's a very tricky situation, because they should, the public should have the right to at least give us their opinion on where they're looking at, so maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, you want to be able to say, let's just say, for argument's sake, we're purchasing a new computer or something to that effect. And why are we purchasing a new
Yeah.
computer, want to have. a
Before
little
the vote
feedback
takes
into it
place.
Before we take the vote.
Right, but there are
And we can
certain,
have-
there's certain authorities that the board has that the
Right.
public, not that the public's input doesn't matter, but
Doesn't
if
matter.
we would never, in theory, you would never be able to get anything done. There's levels
Never.
of
That's
what
the public
you're
hearing is
authorized to
about.
do, right,
If we have one particular item, we could go back and forth forever
correct.
with a person in the audience, it could take an hour.
Well, there's I mean, if we go hardcore on Robert's rules, there's limitations,
Right.
you can start setting times, it's been pretty flexible.
We did that.
Well, yeah, no, when you had to during Legoland, you had to get her, yeah, right, now it's pretty free flowing, right? And Deb coming in, she's giving you some items, I don't think that, you can't deviate too much, because that would be problematic if everybody starts coming in and speaking at the front of the meeting. But you have executive privileges that you can do without the legislative part. There's part that the whole board has to do, and there's a part that the public has to have input on, right? So there's levels of it, but, if we have to get refined, we can get more refined on it. Right now, it seems like it's flowing.
I just wanted to be clear as to what we were doing. That's all.
Yeah, I just don't want to get to the point where we have 3 items on the agenda and all of a sudden we're backlogging and backlogging and backlogging. And all of a sudden we're back up to 4 meetings a month because we can only get 2 or 3 items on because we're opening up the floor to all discussion. Nobody wants that.
Right, and you don't want the public to think you're closing them off, but right now, it seems fine. So we'll get a little more refined definition of it for you. Go back to Robert's rules. We can go strictly down what it is. What is, okay? I mean, it's,
All right,
right now, we're fine.
do I have a motion to close the meeting? So look, second. All in favor?
Held it,
Bob?
privilege of the floor.
You didn't ask for privilege.
We did at the
You had
beginning.
no privilege of the
Where
floor.
We
were
gave
you,
you-
Bob?
Yeah, once you stop talking, we go.
Yes, but
The
I think
beginning of the meeting is the comment on the agenda items, the end of the meeting.
No, you don't get 2 privileges. No.
Yeah,
No, let's look up Robert's rules.
Once I
Yeah.
get done,
There is no 2.
Bob, you got anything you really want?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say is I hope you guys appreciate the irony of talking about affordable housing and then the next item going and raising the price of building in the town of Goshen. That's all I wanted to say.
I mean, that's another delicate point line. I mean, affordable housing there's a need for it. Parkland fees, there's a need for that also. We,
Am I ending the meeting? I'm sorry, guys.
We're not voting, yeah.
And I
think you
just,
said
I
aye.
have to shut it off. I just want to be
yes,
clear.
we vote to close, shut it off.